Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Neil Haley Show. And last week we talked about the NFL and the problems that were going on in the NFL. Now I want to talk politics, and especially the war against ISIS or ISIL. And I wanted to know pretty much what ISIS is, and specifically the history of ISIS, who they are, and what our expert feels is going to happen next. So I'm so excited to welcome to the program Keith Davies, and Keith is the director of Rescue Christians, the Walid Shoebat Foundation, and much more. Keith, how are you?
Fine, thank you for having me.
Well, I'm glad to have you on the show, and tell our listeners a little bit more of your background. You do a variety of things to educate the public, specifically what's going on especially when we're talking about Muslim extremists and what's going on with terrorism and things like that.
Well, back in 2003, I was listening to a small radio station when I heard Walid Shoebat be interviewed for the very first time in any radio show. Right. And so I did. At that time, I was just writing letters to try and counter the ridiculous nonsense in the media. So what I did was I looked him up on the internet and found a website, one of like 15 references on Google, and I found a website where there's an email address. I wrote to him, he wrote back to me, and then the rest is history. We've reached hundreds of millions of people throughout the world. Walid has spoken in Chile, in Australia, in Canada, all over America, on Europe, and so forth. So, and he's appeared on, BBC, right, Fox News, etc. Although many of these shows now don't want to have us on anymore, despite the fact that we've been right all along, the political correctness seems to get worse, not better.
It's quite interesting because I've had Teddy on a few times, and Ted Shoebat is a good friend. I've really enjoyed having conversations with him, and he's predicted a lot of these things. But for our listeners today, really, and viewers, the real thing I wanted to educate us on is, first of all, because all we hear about is, about ISIS or ISIL specifically, hey, they're the terrorism portion of it, and they're really wreaking havoc in the Middle East, especially in Iraq and Syria, but we don't know who they are. I watched a little bit on Fox last night to get a little bit of background. It just happened that I saw that, but I know you have extensive knowledge of the group and stuff, so tell us how they were formed and where they are today.
Basically, they're just an extension of Al-Qaeda. They basically formed as a splinter group from Al-Qaeda. They come from the Wahhabi sect, come from out of Saudi Arabia. They're an extension of Osama bin Laden. But, and everyone's going on how brutal they are. They're no different, really, than any of the Al-Qaeda, any of the different organizations like Hamas and so forth. The only real difference is they're very good at doing PR. And also, right, and the second thing is they've captured land. Those are the two real differences between Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda has no real interest in land, and they do, but more in terms of the Khalifa. They don't, obviously their Khalifa, they want to come out of Turkey, right, which is the old Ottoman Empire, which is now we're just seeing that rebuilt. So ISIS basically has taken a forward-running position, right? In fact, ISIS is sponsored by Turkey.
Wow. Okay.
ISIS is doing Turkey's dirty work, right? And then Turkey will come along, right, later on, and they'll do away with ISIS, and they'll take over the whole area, and the Khalifa will be under Turkey. But ISIS has been very good at doing PR, where they, with the beheadings of people, putting them on the internet, right, trying to build up to make the West fear them, right? Because, the beheadings have been going on for years. We've seen beheadings ever since, for the last 10, 15 years, they've been going on ever since the Iraq War,
right? Okay.
And the Afghanistan War. We had Americans beheaded over it before, but we never had the fear. We never took any real notice here until just recently, when two journalists. I think this is really the key of why the world has really sort of woken up. That two liberal journalists, and I stress the word liberal journalists, who were murdered by ISIS right? So these are colleagues of the New York Times, colleagues of all the liberal media. So now, oh my God, it must be terrible how our colleagues are killed. So there's a real danger to us. So now all of a sudden the media wanted to talk about it.
Now we're talking again to Keith Davis, from the director of Rescue Christians and also the Walid Shubat Foundation, and he does much more. Now, Keith, I'm going to step back a bit because I still want to go. I was watching Fox last night, and they were basically saying that these guys are really dangerous, and they've left Al Qaeda because Al Qaeda thought they were too extreme for them. Is that just another part of their whole PR move for America to fear them more by using this PR, Twitter, all the different avenues to put this fear that they're more dangerous than Al Qaeda, just as a political machine in certain aspects?
Well, I would think they're not dangerous at all, and here's why. We recognize violence as dangerous, and we're willing to deal with it. However, the current president of the United States is not willing to deal with it, but eventually we can deal with the violent part, right, of Islam. The most dangerous part of Islam are the peaceful Muslims, the moderate Muslims, the so-called moderate ones, who have infiltrated our government. The Muslim Brotherhood have infiltrated the United States government. I mean, in Walid's book, Case for Islamophobia, he points all this stuff out. I'll just give you just a couple of small examples. We have an imam. I can't remember his name. It's gone out of my head, but he is the head imam for the United States military.
Okay.
Is a raving Nazi promoter of Hitler type promotion of hatred of Jews. Has written in the Arabic language, right, to hate these absolutely disgusting Nazi type things, and he's the head imam of our United States military. His name, I can't remember his name, but you will find it in the book Case for Islamophobia. Homa Abedin, who we exposed several years ago, right? She was the Hillary Clinton's right-hand woman, right?
Okay.
When she was a Secretary of State, right? And her father and mother weren't in the Muslim Brotherhood; they were leaders in the Muslim Brotherhood. She herself used to work for a guy by the name of Al-Sif, who was one of the head funders of Al Qaeda, and
wow.
she is,
really?
And just by the fact of her associations, just disqualifies her from working in the federal government. And it's a standard rule. If you have nefarious associations, right, even relatives, even if you're innocent, you should not be employed by the United States government because you could be compromised. Okay. Yet that was totally overlooked. There's just two small cases of infiltration. Now you've got people who are the Muslim Brotherhood are running our Department of Homeland Security.
No, I understand that fact. So why is it that the right, other part, and not your talking points, but others stating ISIS is so dangerous and that they're like the Nazis, and you don't believe that? So you have a different perspective.
No, I didn't say that. No. They are dangerous in terms of their violence.
Okay.
But we can recognize that danger.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, we're able to recognize that danger, and the United States military has the power if it's used properly. The problem it's not being used properly is that we don't have a real plan. We want to arm other Muslim terrorists that we call moderates. They're not moderates, but we call them moderates. We've been trying to arm these so-called moderates for the last 10 years to get rid of Assad, and the same people who want to now help to defeat ISIS, who themselves are just as dangerous as ISIS. The problem is that yes, ISIS is dangerous, but we, as a people and the American public, can understand that because of the violence they carry out. The problem is that the so-called moderate Muslim Brotherhood, who have infiltrated our government, are destroying our ability to fight them within. In fact, I would argue that the President of the United States himself is a member of the Muslim Brotherhood.
Okay, so for our listeners out there, an interesting point of view, Keith, that I didn't hear before, and we definitely will jump back to that, especially for the next segment. But just for our viewers and listeners out there, when you say the danger, that imminent danger, you just think, hey, we can take them out. It's just like any type of situation. But I love the point you made about arming moderates. Think about how Al Qaeda started. We in Afghanistan, we gave them the weapons, right? So So
yeah, we looked at the communism and Russia as the main enemy,
and it was.
So we armed we armed the Muslim fundamentalists to fight the Russians, and then gained confidence, and now they turn their guns on us.
See, so that's where I wouldn't trust it either. And that's another thing when we talk about the whole military plan. So ISIS and Al-Qaeda are not together anymore. And why are there differences between those two groups?
There is no difference between them. The only difference is that ISIS has now taken over land and called it the Caliphate. Right? That's really the only difference. I mean, al-Nusra is just as dangerous to the United States. In fact, the head bomb maker who planted the bomb for the foot bomb that happened just after 9/11. The same guy is now trying to produce bombs that have no metal in them, right? And he's in other words, trying to put these bombs on airplanes, right? And we can't detect them because there's no metal in the bomb. And that's extremely dangerous, right? That's more dangerous, and it's been recognized by the Department of Homeland Security, more dangerous to al-Nusra than ISIS is, because ISIS has no plans at this moment in time to attack the United States. I mean, down the road they might, but there's no specific threat that the Department of Homeland Security has identified with ISIS. However, al-Nusra does have many significant threats. So in the near term, al-Nusra is probably more dangerous to the United States than actually ISIS in the immediate term.
Do you think that the mainstream media, even Fox, Keith, in a lot of ways, is just trying to play their political points of view in this situation with ISIS, and that they're scaring the American public in certain aspects just because this is going to be a way to earn political points for the midterm election?
Well, my opinion of Fox is that they're an arm of the Republican Party, just as CNN is an arm of the Democrat Party.
Right,
and I don't think Fox is a right-wing thing. I think it's more progressive. I think Roger. I mean, if you look who's on, Karl Rove. I mean, he's the epitome of the establishment of the Republican Party. Right? Yeah, they have liberals on too, but well, also CNN has conservatives on as well from time to time, just as I think the American media is more ignorant, right, than it is got a certain agenda. I think the problem with the American media, they don't even know what they don't know.
Exactly. Oh, Keith, when we get back, we're going to talk more a little bit about the ISIS and the war. And then a little bit more take about your concerns and fear that we should have for a longer period of time, especially what you and Waleed are doing, and Ted and the organization. Again, we're talking to Keith Davis from Rescue Christians and the Waleed Shabbat Foundation, and you're watching The Neil Haley Show, and we'll be back in just a moment.
Join us for the first annual Bethel Park Zombie Walk, Saturday, October 25th from 3 to 5 p.m. at Bethel Park High School parking lot. The walk will be followed by a zombie costume contest and light refreshments. Register at Bethel Park Municipal Building's reception desk between Oktoberfest and October 15th during regular office hours. For more information, call BPTV at 412-831-3304. There is a $10 registration fee. All proceeds benefit the Bethel Park Volunteers Scholarship Fund. We hope you will join us for this new Bethel Park holiday tradition.
We're back to the Neil Haley Show, and so far learning different things about ISIS in a way compared to what we hear in the mainstream media. But that's what Neil Haley does. He uncovers the things, and I have Keith Davis, from the director of Rescue Christians and also the Waleed Shabbat Foundation. And now, Keith, here's my point. The concern that I have about the entire Middle East are the amount of Christians that are killed each and every day if they don't convert. And why is it that some of the media wants to ignore that completely? What do you think the reason is there?
Well, it's political correctness. I mean, it's the main reason. I mean, obviously, if Christians are being killed and murdered, and you're exposing that, you're going to cause an extreme visceral hatred towards Islam, right? That's what they're afraid of. But and it's tragic. I mean, but it's not only the media; it's also in the churches. The churches don't want to talk about this either. They don't want to deal with it, right? And I don't know. Maybe the evangelicals don't want to get involved.
I think Catholic churches really spoke out on this. So I would say, yeah, Christians, but not the Catholic Church, especially. They're really trying to bring out what's happening in Iraq and Syria and different places like that. But I don't think it's hidden as much. But I agree with you, the evangelical stuff, I've not heard a lot, because you're looking at, again, the Republican Party and a lot of them, and they're not bringing up the murdering of Christians to the point. So do you think, Keith, that that's the reason why we're going to war with ISIS? Or do you think it's just, again, another political ploy and a certain thing of was it all the murdering?
Right. Well, the reason we're going to war with ISIS is because of the New York Times. I mean, the liberal media had started to focus on this, which turned public opinion. In other words, public opinion had ignored this because the liberal media, right, and the mainstream media had, for the most part, ignored the dangers, right, of Islam. And Islam is a peaceful religion,
Right, yeah.
Right. And then all of a sudden, these two journalists get killed, and the media picked up on it,
right,
and which switched public opinion against ISIS and against the radicals, and to do something about it, which then caused Obama to do something because his own party was on board to do something, right? But Obama doesn't want to go to Iraq. He doesn't want to put boots on the ground. He wants to, because he doesn't want to be looking like his policy has failed. Which is, I mean, everybody who understands what's going on, right, and understands a little bit of what's going on in the world, understands that Obama's policies have completely failed, right? And we're always backing the wrong horse, and we're always doing the wrong thing. When we'd be doing the wrong thing in the Middle East, not just since Obama, but since 1948.
So why since 1948? Give us that date and the reasons. What mistakes have we made?
Well, actually, you can go back further. I mean, the policies of the United States from the West, whether it's for Britain and France, and then later in the United States, goes back to obviously 1916. Basically, we basically created these artificial countries, right, in the Middle East, right, to pit one against the other. We put in strong men, right, in order to make sure that our oil interests of the West, both Britain, France, and the United States, were taken care of. Wow. And our policy, basically, up to recent times, has been basically just to make sure that the barrel of oil kept flowing in at the right price. I mean, that's basically our policy on the Middle East.
What would your policy, Keith, if you were running the country or were involved in politically, what would your solution be for the Middle East?
And my solution to the Middle East would be obviously to see, the problem is with the Middle East is Islam, and radical Islam. That's the problem in the Middle East.
Right.
And so you cannot have, right, once you created the dictators, you needed to keep the dictators, right? The policy of the Middle East over the last 10 years, or the last 6 years under Obama, was to remove the dictators and allow radical Islam to fit in. When I said to you earlier that I believe that Obama's a Muslim Brotherhood, well, the reason I said that was because he has been helping the Muslim Brotherhood with every policy to enable the Muslim Brotherhood to take over. They took over Libya, right? It's a complete lie and fabrication that we went to try and stop a humanitarian disaster. That was the premise that we went into Libya. What we've actually done is the opposite. There now is a human disaster. There is people by the hundreds and thousands of people are leaving Libya on little boats trying to get to Italy and Europe. And do you see anything out of the media? If the liberal media would show that, it would show a complete disaster in Libya. Libya has been a complete disaster. It's now a failed state. You have two factions fighting each other over, and they're both Islamic fundamentalists, over power of Libya. We deposed Mubarak, and we allowed the Muslim Brotherhood to take over right there. calling it the Arab Spring. We have the same problem in Tunisia. We have the same problem. Now, why do we want to get rid of Assad? In order to empower the Muslim Brotherhood, to empower the Sunni Muslims to take over Syria, which is another problem there.
Now, Keith, we're talking to Keith Davies from Rescue Christians and also the Walid Shabbat Foundation about the danger of ISIS. And you bring up boots on the ground. Why can't airstrikes take care of this? So this is the big thing.
I'm not a military expert. Okay. However, all the military experts are saying that boots on the ground is required to take care of ISIS because you don't want to arm the so-called moderate right rebels because they're not moderate. Anyone who's got a brain between their ears knows they're not moderate. Right? The Iraqi army is a failed army. They all ran and turned tail, and all their equipment was captured by ISIS. And you want them now to fight against ISIS. You need a professional army who knows what they're doing, and they can take care of business with these guys in 5 minutes without air power. But what Obama had said, if you looked at his speech there a couple of weeks ago, he said that he wanted this was going to take years. In the same breath, he talks about the Christians. He wants the Christians to remain in the Middle East, but they've been there for 2,000 years. So basically, we got 1 million refugees, 200,000 are Christian, are sitting in Kurdistan with tents. Some of them have no place to stay, no food, no nothing, and he wants them to stay there for 10 years.
Oh, yeah.
While he takes care of ISIS, instead of taking care of it in 3 or 4 weeks.
So boots on the ground, you think you could take care of it quickly then? But I know you're not a military expert yet, but yeah.
If the American military would go in there with a powerful force of 50, 60, 80, 100,000 troops, they would be able to destroy ISIS in 2 or 3 weeks, maybe a month, right, and then pull out at least 10,000 troops there, like he should have done 4 or 5 years when we left the first time. In other words, we now got to go back and do what we did the last time. Right. But that's if you wanted to destroy ISIS. But if you don't want to do it, then why bother at all?
Again, we're talking to Keith Davies, and now Keith, the point I'm saying with ISIS is that you don't think they're that militarily strong if there's boots on the ground. Airstrikes will do nothing but keep this going for a long period of time, and it'll be another Afghanistan in certain aspects, and things will keep getting worse and worse in Iraq again, and then we all know the issues that are happening in Syria. Now, your take when you're talking about the Muslim Brotherhood and things like this, and all these organizations, that if ISIS is taken care of, there'll be another problem after that, right? If we defeat ISIS or ISIL, then the same thing's going to happen with another group coming out of the woodwork, correct?
Well, that's true if we don't leave troops on the ground. In other words, we don't leave at least 15, 20, 25, 30,000 troops on a permanent station there to make sure we keep the peace. Obviously, the American public may not be too popular with that. We also, need to forget this to creating democracy in the Middle East. As long as you have Islam as a dominant religion in the Middle East, right, you're not going to have democracy. It's just not possible because it's like having capitalistic communism. I mean, it doesn't work. Freedom and Islam doesn't exist together, right? And it's all political. And people. In America, the objective of Islam is to take over this country with Sharia law. And that's what the objective is. And we can't get away from that. And all these so-called moderate Muslims you hear on the radio and television, what they say in English, I bet you if you listen to what they say in Arabic, it's the complete opposite. And that's what we pointed out in our book, The Case for Islamophobia. It explains all this.
And Keith, you're the co-author of that book? The book?
No, I'm the publisher of the book.
The publisher of the book. Okay.
Yeah, Walid Shabbat and Ben Barak are the writers of the book.
Okay. Now, the final solution in this, before I have to let you go, Keith, is you said that we have to fight the terrorist issues. We have to fight the Islamic terrorists. We cannot sit and say, oh, we'll take this group, but not that. We're still in the war on terror. We should have continued to do that. And by leaving troops, getting troops out of Iraq and now trying to get them out of Afghanistan just proves that all we did is never going to succeed. That you have to always be there if you don't have a dictator in control of a country.
I mean, we have troops still in Germany. We don't need troops in Germany. Well, we actually do for the Russian threat, but we have troops in Japan. We have troops in South Korea, right? So what's the big deal of having troops in Iraq to maintain the peace?
Exactly,
what's the big deal? In other words, but we need to be in control, and we need to dominate these countries so that they don't cause trouble, right? And they're under our influence, and they do what we say, and then we'll be safer. But to leave them to their own accord, and I mean, what we've done is, if you look what's happened in Iraq when we pulled out, there's been strife in the country, the Sunnis against the Shia, right? You have the influence of Iran, you got the influence of Turkey, right? And all you have is civil war and people blowing each other up. So why not put in a colonial power like America who can actually keep the peace?
Exactly.
You know, I remember Waleed telling the story about when Israel occupied the whole of the West Bank and the Palestinian Authority wasn't in existence, right? And Waleed used to say, "I prayed for the occupation when we had peace."
All right, cool. Where can we find information on you and learn more about you? Where's the best place to go?
Yeah, sure. The best place, we have a blog that's very popular, and you get the latest information on shubat.com, and you'll hear the truth, the whole truth about really what's going on in the Middle East, and not what you see in the mainstream media at shubat.com, SHOEBAT.com.
All right. Thanks a lot for calling the program, Keith, and take care, all right?
All right, God bless. Bye-bye.
Okay, well, God bless you. All right, that was Keith Davis. And interesting. Now, I want your take. Email me, nhaley@totaltutor.org. Tweet me at TotalTutor. Keith has a different perspective than the right and left. Tell me what you think. And next week on the program, I'm going to have a studio guest, NFL Super Bowl champion, coming to BPTV studios in Pittsburgh, Bethel Park, Darnell Dinkins. And then the week after, another amazing guest. Go to my website, totaltutor.net, for more information. And I want to hear from you. Was this a little controversial, especially when he brought up with Obama? That's not my issue or my views. I'm just trying to take it right down the center. Good talking to all you guys in the TV land and radio land. And have a great week. We'll talk next week. Good day, everyone.